Hi everyone, it's Kenny here from RPM Online. It gives me great pleasure today to say that I'm talking to a drummer, a producer, an engineer. He's been in so many bands that I couldn't even list them all. But the main ones that we're all going to know, obviously Alice Cooper, obviously Accept, Flotsam and Jetsam at the moment, and you've been a part of TKO in the past, Fifth Angel, obviously. But just to say that we've got the fantastic Ken Mary with us today, and I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time out just to have a chat with you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, cool, man. So basically, the reason that I'm talking to you today is I was lucky enough to review the new Flotsam album for RPM. I think it's fantastic. So let's start with that because it's released on the 4th, which is Friday.
Yep.
So how's it all gone? How's it with lockdown? How have you coped with recording an album?
Well, it was definitely a different process. Normally, obviously, we would, all be together in a room and work some things out. And this time it was, it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, it kind of worked to our advantage.
Okay.
We started off by just sending each other ideas, and everybody would record their parts and just see how everything worked and flowed. And then we would complete the ideas that we felt the strongest about.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of a different process to begin with. And even when we were recording vocals, like I would be in the control room and it would be in the tracking room of my studio, and we would see each other through the glass, and that was it. we'd say hello, and So it was definitely a weird thing because we all had elderly parents that we're trying to protect, and we were trying to be very careful during the process. But I think it also made for an album. We had a lot of friends and family that got sick. 2 of the guys in the band got sick.
Okay.
So it was a difficult process, and in some ways, I think it added to the emotion of the record, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I put that in the review, that you could kind of almost feel the, not so much anger, but the frustration of the last year is kind of bouncing out with our record. It's just so much energy, and it just sounds amazing. And, the drumming is, I'm a drummer myself, so the drumming is just like, wow, it's just amazing, as usual.
Well, thank you so much.
Incredible. Yeah, sounds brilliant. So obviously you did it in lockdown, so with regards to the actual producing of the album, did you do that yourself?
Well, we all play a hand in the production. I think in terms of, the parts, I'd say probably most of it was recorded at my studio, all the vocals, all the drums.
Yeah.
The guitar players have their own studios, and they usually do their thing. And Bill recorded his bass at his studio.
Okay.
And I sort of assemble it and then send it off for mixing. So, we all definitely have a hand in what happens. I'd say in terms of this album, maybe even more so than last album, this album was really a team effort as far as, everybody was really putting their input in. And I think also it was a very good chemistry on this album, and I say that I've been involved in a lot of records, as you know, but this really was an interesting chemistry where everything just seemed to really gel and work as far as the writing process. And it seemed to be an easy process. Like a lot of people, when they make records, they're like, oh, it was very laborious, and they had to, and it was a lot of work, and we really had a tough time with these songs and all that. And this was not that way at all. These things just kind of flowed out. And when we were finished, we were like, well, we think it's pretty good. Our goal was to make an album that was at least as good as The End of Chaos, because we really all loved The End of Chaos. We loved that record. And we were like, well, hopefully we can make something as good. And I think, from the initial response that we're seeing, maybe we actually topped that album, which would be awesome.
Yeah, like you're saying, that's you've done pretty well to top that, because that is a fantastic record as well. How's it been going with Bill, the new bass player? Is he settling in? How's that been going?
Yeah, he's settling in. He has toured with the band since I think 2016. He's filled he's filled in on live dates on and off for Michael Spencer, usually touring in the U.S. with Flotsam. Mm-hmm. And, I've toured with him, and, the band's toured with him. So it was a very natural process. It really was, all I could say is it was very, very seamless. Bill came in and worked on this record and did parts that worked and wrote things that were great, probably because he's worked with the band for, a number of years already. So it was a very easy transition.
Yeah. So he was pretty much an obvious choice then, really. Okay, cool.
Yes.
So obviously you've been in Flotsam now for, was it maybe 4 or 5 years on and off? How did you get involved with the band?
4 years. That's actually a funny story. Steve Conley is a good friend of mine. Well, the first thing that happened is the self-titled album, they recorded the drums at my studio.
Was that Jason Bittner playing on that?
Yeah. Bittner. Yeah. He was there, and, so we started recording that album at my studio. And when the record was done, I had it in my car for months. I mean, I loved that album. I was a big fan of that record. And so when Jason left, Steve called me and said, "Hey, do you want to fill in Europe, for I think like 11 shows or something like that?" And I thought, it'll be fun. Let's go ahead and make that happen. And then, here I am 4 years later. I always joke. I always joke. It's like a stray dog that showed up, and it's just,
Yeah, stray dog.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, man, you broke up a bit. Then I got you back.
Oh, I was just joking. I said it's kind of like a stray dog that shows up at your house and then just stays there.
Yeah, I imagine you're a pretty welcome stray dog, though. I can't imagine they shoo you away. So, obviously, with regards to working with the band and doing stuff with Fifth Angel, is that still ongoing? Has that been happening throughout lockdown, or is that kind of on hiatus at the moment for you?
No, I mean, we've been writing a few things with Fifth Angel and just kind of putting some songs together and working towards doing the next album. And so that's still happening.
Cool. Look forward to that. So have you got any other projects that you're working on at the moment, or is it pretty much the two bands that you're concentrating on? Because I know you're a busy guy.
That's pretty much what I'm doing. And then I'm also, as a drummer, I'm working on I'm at the point in my career where I feel like it's time to start tipping the hat to the people that influenced me. Yep. And I'm going to do a project called Three Drummers, and I'm going to talk about the three drummers that were the most influential in my career, which were Buddy Rich, Neil Peart, John Bonham, which is a very weird combination because they're completely different drummers.
But so, listening to your style of playing, I watched something on YouTube yesterday just to gen up on stuff that you've been doing. There was a video of you yourself in the studio, and I think it was like you were recording something for a demo. The jazz stuff was really, really flying through there. I know you're well renowned as a hard rock and a metal drummer, but I can just imagine you can play anything. I can just imagine you could sit down and just I can do that. It's fine. Whereas I'm very much a hard rock metal drummer, and I would really struggle with the other styles. But I can see that you've got so much going on with regards to your influences, like you said, Buddy Rich. Yeah, I could see that definitely.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm saying this the first time on your show, and I'm sure I'm going to get lots of angry comments about this. But my thought is, if Buddy Rich was born in 1917. And he said himself, he goes, I wasn't even a jazz drummer. He was a rudimental drummer. And that was his thing, speed and precision. My thought is, if he was alive or if he was born in this era, I believe Buddy Rich would have been a metal drummer. That's my, and I'm sure people are going to just slam me on that. But he said himself, he said, I wasn't a jazz drummer until later. And he was really attracted to speed and precision. That's what he was all about. So I'm looking at that going, he definitely would have been a metal drummer.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I can just imagine him with a double bass flying. Yeah.
Well, he did actually do some stuff with double bass. It's very rare, but you can probably find it on YouTube. And he was actually I mean, for not really playing double bass in any music that he was playing, it was actually pretty impressive for that time period.
Very proficient. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? How these guys just could, like yourself, just turn your hand to anything, really. Yeah, that's interesting, actually, that he could well be a metal drummer. Can't imagine him with the long hair though and the tattoos,
Would have been born in this era, I think he would have been, because that's metal drumming is sort of where I see the bar as being pushed.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of other styles of drumming that have remained very, very the same. I mean, if you look at progressive jazz and you look at fusion, the chops, what's going on there is very similar to what's been going on for the last 40 years. Metal drumming, it's just come leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff I played on Alice's record, Raise Your Fist, which was that was very much pushing the bar for its time period, and I think played a part in moving everything forward as far as metal drumming. But now we're playing things in metal that are so far beyond that it's really come a very long way in 30 years.
Yeah, something I picked up with the last two Flotsam albums that you played on. They're slightly moving into more like prog metal. They're like the Dream Theater kind of thing is kind of creeping up in there. Obviously, the full-on thrash is still there, But
sure,
I'm picking up, and that's probably, I would think, your influence of being in there and just bringing a lot more to the plate. Really, I just picked that up. There's a lot more going on.
Sure. Well, again, I think it's a chemistry thing. I don't think it's any one member. I think if you take any one member out of the Flotsam chemistry, I think it's a different record.
Yeah.
So it really is I think it's kind of a special thing. My favorite Flotsam albums are the first two albums. I was always a fan of Flotsam, but I love those.
Have you seen it there?
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the first two albums, and I love the last three albums, which is kind of weird. Those are my favorite Flotsam albums. Like I said, I had the self-titled in my car for months and months listening to that thing. And the other thing that's really weird for me when I work on a production, I've said this in another interview, but when I work on a production and I have something to do, some hand in the engineering or production, I've probably heard a song, maybe 200 or more times by the time it's done. And so I generally tend to never listen to the record ever again. And I love The End of Chaos, and I love Blood in the Water. I love both of these records, and I've heard them, hundreds of times. So that's a very unusual thing to say. I mean, I think, I'm just a fan. It's like I love AK's voice. We have the greatest guitar team. We've got Steve Connolly and Michael Gilbert. Incredible guitar duo.
Absolutely.
Bill's an incredible player. It's almost like an all-star band. It's kind of, it's really, it's.
I've known about Flotsam since the glory days of thrash back in the 80s. But I would say the band at the moment is probably the best it's ever sounded. Like you say, AK is sounding just amazing. He's hitting those notes, man.
Well, that's I think AK's voice to me sounds better than when he was younger. Like I like his voice now more than I did on the first two albums. So, I don't know what that means, but other than he's getting better and better.
Absolutely. It tends to go the other way, doesn't it? With rock and metal vocalists, where you can tell that they start to struggle a little bit as they get older. I'd say like Bruce Dickinson, obviously he had the cancer. But his voice now is something completely different to what it was. But AK, like you say, is just sounding better, much better.
So, I think so. Well, wearing a Motorhead shirt, and we joke about this. We say we hope we're going to be the next Motorhead, because Motorhead was always an iconic band. They were always there. People knew about them. But if you look at their career, they really took off towards the end of their career, and so we say, well, maybe we can pull a Motorhead.
It's a similar sort of path, isn't it? Because obviously Motorhead had their glory days with like the Ace of Spades and Overkill era, and then they kind of went down a little bit, and then they came back. So it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Yep, we hope so. Yes.
Yeah, man, awesome. So I just wanted to ask about your style of drumming with the thrash bands. Then, how much have you had to adapt how you play to play in? Because you're well known as a hard rock and a metal drummer, but as we know, thrash is something else completely. And one thing I've noticed is and I hardly ever see this, you've kept the flair in the thrash with the twirling and the throwing the sticks. You don't see many thrash drummers doing that, man.
No, because there's not enough time.
No,
you know, like
no.
it's very much a challenge, you know, to go like, okay, where can I put something in here? Because you're like, you know, there's so little time in between hits and stuff that you have to be very careful and selective of where you're going to try and put any type of flash. But yeah, I know some people have commented on that, saying, you know, like, oh, you know, he does, you know, twirling and, you know, blah, blah, blah. We've had a couple guys that were not happy about that.
Really?
And I just said, you know, it's you know, don't look at it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I just think it's, you know, testament to your playing that you can still fit that in, playing such, you know, brutal music. I think it's amazing. But there we go. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Well, what's funny is you know, people go, well, how much did you have to change? And you know, if you listen to something like Raise Your Fist and Yell, and you listen to the chops and some of the stuff going on, and then you listen to Flotsam, it's a lot of the, I mean, same influences, same approach. It's just a lot faster, you know. I mean, and these are the kind of things where I've been playing this kind of stuff in drum clinics for years, and so it's actually fun to be able to play this kind of aggressive, very, very fast, very complicated, very technical music, and actually be able to put it on a record and fit into a song is actually a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I imagine. Yeah, like I say, the new album is just you know, your performance is astounding. It kind of makes me want to throw my sticks in the bin, you know.
Well, hopefully, I've heard some other drummers tell me that, like, oh, it makes me want to not play, and I was like, well, hopefully it makes you want to play, you know, where you hear it and you go like, oh, what's that? Oh, I can do that. Or, you know, maybe influence yourself with something. I mean, hopefully it inspires people to play and not stop playing. Yeah,
I'm only joking, man. Yeah, but it's incredible anyway. So well done. It just sounds phenomenal. So can we go back a little bit and talk about what got you started playing? Obviously, you've mentioned your main influences, but how old were you when you started playing?
Well, that's a funny question, because I'm not really sure. When I was 5 years old, I mean, I was banging around with pencils and pens, and, you know, teachers would have to take stuff away from me. So, you know, people always say, well, why did you pick drums? And I was like, well, I didn't pick drums. Drums picked me. And I've heard other drummers say that. So when I got into, I think I was in 6th grade, and they said, well, what instrument do you want to play? You know, because I guess everybody in school, you know, you had a choice of doing something in band class or whatever. And I was just like, well, I want to play drums, obviously, you know. So there was never a question. You know, I was always, like I said, you know, even before officially drumming, I was goofing around on pots and pans and things like that. So for me, it was just a very natural thing. So it started out, you know, very natural. And then when I started officially playing, learning rudiments and all of those things, I did seem to have some sort of natural aptitude. Like, I know that there are, I've seen great drummers both ways. I've seen great drummers that just really work a great amount, and they end up becoming technically very great players. And I've seen drummers that are just kind of natural players, and it just kind of flows for them. I was a little bit of both. You know, I had some natural aptitude, and then I also worked and practiced diligently as well. So I think a combination of those two things, you know, really, really helped. And then also I worked on rudiments. Really, the first year I was playing, that's all I worked on. Was I had drumsticks and a drum pad, and that's all I worked on was rudiments.
So you just sit there practicing for hours,
Pretty much. I mean, when you're a kid, you know, you don't even think that you're working. You know, it's just fun, and you enjoy it. You know, although I will say practicing rudiments, you know, sometimes gets a little boring, but I enjoyed it, and I was always looking forward to, well, when do I get to play on the drum kit? And then once I was able to do that, then that was you know, that was a whole new world. But I think it really helped the fact that I spent a year just practicing on the drum pad. I think that gave me an edge, I think, because I think it's easier to control two limbs and really understand what you're doing there and control that, and then add your feet. You know, I think it's much easier to do that than trying to coordinate everything all at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you didn't go down like the marching band route or anything like that? Because I know a lot of...
Actually, in school, I was in every class. I was in marching band. I was in stage band. I was in jazz band. I was in, there was a time in when I was in high school, 3 of my classes, I think I had stage band first thing in the morning. Like, I think we had to be there at 6:30 in the morning before school started. I had a class called band workshop, which was basically to go in and practice drums for an hour is basically what it was.
Amazing.
And then I also had, I was in the marching band, and which I wasn't able to be in the marching band because I was in my high school band, which was Fifth Angel, and we would actually be playing shows on the weekend. So we would be doing shows and the marching band would be on the field. So unfortunately, I wasn't really able to be part of the marching band. I mean, I was in it, but I wasn't able to attend the performances. So, but I was in that, and then I was in the orchestra as well. So, I mean, you know, almost my whole day, I'd say probably like 3 or 4 hours of my day was just being in something that's music related, but I loved it. And then I played in a rock band on the weekends. So it was nonstop music for me.
Amazing. So that kind of gave you, you know, you talk about the jazz stuff, such a good foundation, didn't it, for everything, really?
Well, I think so. I had a teacher called Dick Stensland. That was his name. And he was in Seattle. And he started me out on Latin, jazz, fusion, progressive music like Yes. So I was very, very well-rounded. And then I went, I think I was maybe 10 years old or so, and I went to see a Kiss concert. And that was kind of a life-changing event for me. I was like, I want to do that. So then I got into the rock stuff. You know, I was into bands like Aerosmith and Kiss and Rush and you know, certainly Neil Peart was a huge influence on me, and you know, so many people. I'd say every drummer that's, you know, been around for about the last 40 years. I don't think he had an influence on all of us, but you know, he certainly did something that allowed us to think differently as drummers. You know, we started thinking in terms of, and that's the one thing I think you might be referring to in the Flotsam record, is the fact that, you know, I put some thought into what's going where and what the fills are and what it's doing in the music. And I think that's, you know, honestly, that's an influence from Neil, because you look back at what he did, and he really was, as far as I know, the first drummer to really orchestrate the parts, to really spend some time thinking about what he was putting into the music. And, you know, I think that's been an inspiration for all of us.
Yeah, you can tell that every single fill was thought out. It wasn't just thrown in, was it?
Nope, he definitely thought things out. And that's something I respect a great deal. And I even went back. So on this thing that I'm doing with 3 drummers, you know, I went back and I recorded 3 of Neil's songs the way he would have had to record, which is no editing, you know, no fixing anything. You know, you just have to play. And then they didn't play to a click either. I mean, that was the other interesting thing. They just played the song. So, you know, I went ahead and redid that process, you know, just to kind of show how difficult it was. You know, one take, no punching in. Well, back then they could punch in, but they couldn't punch out. To be honest with you, I heard 2 punch-ins on Tom Sawyer, but on the original tracks. But when I did it, you know, I went through and just did all one take, no editing, you know, no goofing around, no magic tricks, you know, just the, you know, the way that he would have had to do it. Amazing. And it was a fun experience to go back and do that but the thing that it did do is I was like, wow, what a, you know, just tons of respect for, you know, the just the creative composition that he put into the music. I mean, just respect, man. That's all I could say.
So did you have access to the original tapes then?
Yes, I did have the original tracks, which made it fun. That was another fun element, because I'm trying to lock 2 tracks that already exist. Instead of, you know, normally when you're laying a drum track in 1980 or whatever, you would lay the drum track and then everybody would play to you. And this was the reverse of that, which added another element of making it a little more difficult, because they didn't use a click and things were kind of speeding up and slowing down little bit. I mean, not bad, but
No.
but things were moving a little bit,
Yeah.
and you had to follow them. So
it's very organic.
It was interesting.
That's amazing. So yeah, I was listening to Van Halen's debut a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what track it was. It might have been Atomic Punk or something. And you could actually hear from the start of the track to the end that it had moved on a little bit. Like say only a little bit, but you could hear it. But it's just everything was just so much more organic in those days, wasn't it?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think it made for some interesting anomalies when you go back and try and play some of those songs. You know, sometimes the chorus is speeding way up and the verses are kind of back. But for that era, you know, I mean, it really worked. And I think we're in a different era now. People started using drum machines really as click tracks. I mean, we did it on the, you know, we were using click tracks on the first Fifth Angel record, you know.
Really?
I mean, you go back and you listen and you go listen to that record, and it's pretty funny because being as young as we were, and you got to remember, there's no Pro Tools. No. It's all two tape. You have to, if you don't play it or sing it, it doesn't end up on the record. I mean, you have to, and drums, you had to play all the way through. I mean, you didn't really have the punch in. We didn't have a Studer. Like Studer were the only machines that you could kind of punch in on. And so we kind of had to play from start to finish. And I go back and listen to those albums, and I'm very proud of what we accomplished as musicians for being young. I mean, we were very attentive to detail, and we made sure that those were very solid, very, you know, very, that sounds like we had Pro Tools, and we didn't.
Yeah.
Those are tough records.
Yeah, man, most definitely. So I can't let you go without having a little chat about this. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. So this for me, this came out in 97. I was 14 years of age when this came out. And I'd listened to the Constrictor album before, really enjoyed that. And obviously I was aware of Alice Cooper and School's Out and, you know, $1 Billion Babies and all that stuff. I knew who he was, but this album that you played on was my real introduction to Alice Cooper, really. And still to this day, is still my favorite Alice Cooper album. And I played it a few days ago, because I haven't played it for a while. And the impact that you made on this album, there's 3 songs that you start.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. And I remember at the time hearing it, like, who the hell is this guy, you know? For the second track, Lock Me Up, that intro at the start of that, man. And you're flying those 30-second notes around. I was like, whoa, who's this guy, you know? But yeah, it's an amazing album.
Well, thank you very much. That is, I'd say the reason, you know, that I'm starting those songs and have those drum intros, that really was Kane Roberts. You know, he was, you know, we were just fresh off the road, and we really were gelling as a musical team. And he's like, dude, you got to put some killer intro on this song. And I was like, all right, you know, so that really, no pressure. That had a lot to do with Kane, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you get involved with the Alice Cooper band? How did you end up joining Alice Cooper? Because he was still in Fifth Angel at that time.
I was. It's actually a funny story. I was playing a famous club in Los Angeles called the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is some that, I mean, the Doors have played there. Led Zeppelin played there. Motley Crue played there. Van Halen played there. Janis Joplin played there. I mean, you pick an artist, everybody's played the Whiskey A Go-Go at some point in their career.
Even we know all about the whiskey in the UK. You know, it's an iconic place.
Yes, a very iconic place. And so I was playing there, and this is 1986, and somebody from Alice's management company was at the show. I was touring with a Hendrix impersonator called Randy Hansen, who still tours today.
Oh, wow.
You know, incredible player, incredible person, super, you know, amazing guy. And we were playing the whiskey, and some people saw me play that were working with Alice's management, and they just said, wow, you know, we think you should come down and audition for Alice. And I was like, well, are you flying people down? And they're like, well, we're not flying any, because I lived in Seattle at the time, and I was very young. And so they were like, well, we're not flying people down, but if you want to come down, we'll hold you an audition spot. And so, you know, back then the flights were like $350, you know, and that was a lot of money for me. You know, it was a big risk, but, you know, life is about taking risks. So I was like, you know, I flew down, I auditioned. They had 3 days where they were auditioning drummers for 3 days. I was on day number 2. And Kane, I remember he told me, he goes, dude, he goes, I'd love to tell you you have the gig. You know, we have another day and a half of auditions, but I just can't imagine anybody's going to come in here and be that good. So he goes, I want to tell you you have the gig. You just got to wait. You got to wait, you know, a day. And so for a day, I'm just sitting there going like, you know, do I have this gig? You know, and then I got the call that I got the gig. And it was, you know, it was amazing because I went from playing, the biggest show I'd played at that point was 3,000 seat venue in Seattle called the Paramount Theater, which is a very famous theater in Seattle. And then I went from that to playing, you know, sold out Coliseums. Our 5th show with Alice was live broadcast on MTV, 20 million people watching, 22,000 people in the arena. And, you know, that was like my 5th show with Alice, you know, so it was like, you know, welcome to the big leagues, kid. You know, it was quite a, you know, let's throw you into the water and see if you can swim.
Oh, amazing. So I imagine you've got plenty of amazing memories from that time.
I do. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite times of my entire career. I mean, certainly I've done bigger shows and I've done, you know, things with my own bands that were very important. But I think the first time you do something like that, you know, it's such an impact. And, you know, being young and having the time of my life, I mean, I had a blast. I mean, it was so much fun. And it was a fun crew of guys we had. You know, Kip Winger was playing bass, Kane was guitar, and Paul Taylor was on keys, Artie Fanero was the rhythm guitar, and of course Alice. I mean, it was such a great group of guys, and our crew was amazing people. You know, guys like Robert Scoville, who's still a friend of mine today. You know, Gary Grosjean was a drum tech. You know, these are people that I still call friends, and it was an amazing time and an amazing era for sure. I mean, also incredible was, you know, just the audiences. I mean, when you played a show back then, you look at the footage and people are just
going nuts,
going crazy the entire time. And you just go, you know, they're just there to have a blast. You know, they're there to have fun. Yeah,
and I think they're all filming it on their phones. Yeah.
Now everybody's kind of sitting back and filming it. But I tell you what, you know, you look at the footage from, you know, from those concerts and it's just, oh my gosh, people were having such a good time.
Yeah. I've seen that MTV special that you're on about. That's brilliant. Yeah. Can you remember what songs you did at the audition, just out of interest?
I'm sorry, songs for which?
For the audition for Alice.
Oh, well, what's funny is they gave me 7 songs to learn for the audition. And to my recollection, we didn't play any of them. Like, what I remember is, you know, they sent me like 7 songs, and trust me, going for an audition like that, I learned them forwards and backwards. I mean, I had those songs down.
Yeah, man.
And then when I got there, I think what we ended up doing was just kind of jamming on, you know, some of the new songs and just jamming, you know, playing just different riffs and things. And I don't remember actually working on the songs that they gave me to learn, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll have to talk to Kane, but see if he remembers, but I don't remember playing any of the stuff that I practiced.
Well, they must have felt comfortable with you then, obviously.
They did. And Kane said the cool thing was everybody knew it, like everybody in the room. It wasn't like one guy wanted this guy and one guy wanted that guy. He said everybody knew like I was the dude, you know, that I, you know, he said it took like 2 minutes when I walked in the room, and he goes, yeah, you're, you know, he was like, that's our guy. So that was great.
So you mentioned Kiss earlier on briefly.
Yes.
You play Pearl drums and you've always played them. Is the reason you play Pearl drums Peter Criss?
Actually, no. I mean, the reason I was playing, I mean, I'd love to say yes, but the reason I was playing Pearl drums is I was looking for an endorsement when I was doing the first Alice tour. Yeah. And I visited different drum companies. Like I visited Remo Drums, who had, at the time, they had their own brand of drums.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
I visited Pearl and I visited Tama. And I just liked, I liked the Pearl drums, maybe subconsciously, you know, because of Kiss. I'd say that's a very real possibility. But, you know, I'm back with Pearl drums now. You know, I went with Yamaha for a few years, and I kind of feel like it's just weird. It's a weird thing. Like Pearl drums to me, you know, it's I mean, let's face it, everybody, all the high end stuff from all the manufacturers is very good, but there's certain instruments that just connect with you. And for me, I just connect with the Pearl line of drums.
Cool. So with regards to your double bass style then, are you using Pearl pedals, or do you use like Drum Workshop? What are you using?
Well, I was using DW 9000, and I have been using the Axis longboards now, and I'm seeing how that kind of works out. I do like them. They're direct drive. It's definitely a different. I am getting used to, I am used to it, and I feel like I actually use them on this record, and I feel like I can respond very well with them. They do seem to be a little tougher on your body. Like it seems like I think without the chain drive, it's more of an impact, on your foot. Playing as much as playing, it's a little more taxing. So I'm not sure. If for going on the road, I think I might go back to a chain drive.
All right, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've never played those direct drives. It's always been chain drive for me. But
the direct drive, they're definitely a different feel, and they take a while to get used to. And I know some guys, some players that they just won't use them. They've used chain drives their whole lives.
Yeah.
And they tried moving to direct, and then they were like, yeah, I can't do this. And so I felt like I could do it. I don't think that's the problem. I just think that there's definitely more of an impact on your foot, and playing as many notes as we do, it's there's a lot of notes going on there.
Absolutely.
And so, being able to do it in a fashion that's going to be, easy on your body is important too. So we'll see how it goes out.
So do you tend to use the slide technique or the side to side? What works for you?
A little bit of the side to side on one. Most of it's just very direct. I do notice that, as you're getting faster, you do have to bring the heels down a little bit, like in the old days, we used to have the heel up quite a bit. And now when you're getting like at the higher speeds, you do need to bring that down a little bit. The heels come down, and I do a little bit of that side to side with the left foot. The right foot, I don't really, haven't really done that. It goes a little bit, but not as much as the left foot. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's what works for me. And I think, the thing about drumming is you just have to do what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. So do you feel like you lose some power though when your heels are down?
Not really. I think I'm able to still give it a pretty good punch, even at high speeds. Obviously the faster and faster you go, the beater is not going to go back as far because not as much time. You have to, if you're getting, it's just like you can't. It's mechanically you're going to be close to drum head. So from that perspective, I'd say you lose a little bit of power when you're doing things that are very, very fast. But I still feel like I get a pretty good impact even for those high speeds.
Okay, cool. So I'm conscious of time, Ken. You've been talking to me for just over half an hour, which is brilliant. Thanks very much. Let's wrap it up with, how is it looking for gigs in the US at the moment? Things are opening up slowly in the UK.
Yes, there are bands that are touring and doing things, and it does look like we're scheduling some shows for August in the United States. I think August, we're going to do a 2-week run, it looks like, and then we're supposed to be in Europe in January of next year. So we'll have to see how everything goes. It looks like they're trying to do that, and at the same time, you have places in the world that are having severe problems, like India, and so you're kind of keeping an eye out, going, what's going to happen here. We don't know, but hopefully people will be back on the road soon. Yeah,
it's tricky, isn't it? Obviously, we're having problems with the Indian variant in the UK at the moment, so things are a little bit, they're easing the restrictions, but we'll have to just wait and see, won't we? So it's a bit of a worry.
Sure. So when you say you're having problems with the Indian variant, we have that here too, but we haven't really seen what are they saying about it? Are they saying that it's more aggressive, or what's the story?
Yeah, well, basically they're saying that it is more aggressive, but they are saying that the vaccines are effective on the Indian variant. But the issue that we've had, without getting too political, our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he let people in from India when he shouldn't have been. He didn't close the borders, So that didn't happen for like weeks until when India were pretty much on their knees with this virus. We were still letting people in, you know, so it was pretty obvious really what was going to happen, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to sort itself out. But yeah, it's just been a nightmare, isn't it, for everyone? It's been an awful time.
It has been. I mean, it's a nightmare on so many levels. We had a year of dates canceled with Flotsam, and you know, you're not able to connect with your fans. You're not able to, perform. It's a very, very difficult period for sure.
Absolutely.
You feel like a whole year just disappeared, for no reason. It's like a year's gone.
Yeah, a whole year of your life. I suppose you guys have been lucky that you've still been able to record and work on this fantastic material.
Well, we feel like that was very fortunate for sure. But like I said, we had a couple guys in the band get sick, and we had AK's mom was in the hospital for 8 weeks, and they didn't think that she was going to make it. I mean, there were several times they called and said, it doesn't look like she's going to make it. So it was very, very difficult time for all of us.
Yeah. There's not many people that this virus hasn't touched in some way. That's for sure.
Yep.
There we go. But anyway, Ken, thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to the album coming out. So it's coming out on Friday, just to reiterate that. So everybody go out and buy it because it's fantastic. And thanks again, Ken, for your time. You've been an absolute star. Thanks, mate.
All right. Have a great day.
And you.
Evening. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you have a great day and go back to bed now.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Bye.